joy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good.
I call the honourable member Nikki Wagner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this Riccarton Bush Amendment Bill. I've been visiting Dean's Bush in Riccarton all my life. I know that it's officially called Riccarton Bush, but locally and perhaps fondly it's known as Dean's Bush as a mark of respect to the Dean's family, because of course it was the Dean's family who donated that property to the people of Christchurch in 1914, and indeed it was a most generous and appreciated gift. Dean's Bush is a wonderful stand of kahikatea. It's mixed with totara and matai, and it really is an oasis of green very close to our city. And it is the last of that kind of bush on the plains. And I think those trees are possibly about 600 years old. And on the fringe of that bush, there's the original Dean's Cottage, and that was made out of wood cut out of the bush. It was built in 1843, and it's the oldest building standing on the Canterbury Plains, and I'm very pleased to be able to report that it is undamaged by the recent earthquakes. The brothers John and William Deans came from Kirkstyle, Riccarton, in Scotland, and they arrived in New Zealand in the early 1840s, and after negotiating with local Maoris they settled at Riccarton, and they became very successful farmers and traders. And over the years they built a very beautiful and very large Victorian Edwardian home. I say Victorian Edwardian because it was built over 30 or 40 years, and it still stands there. It stands there very proudly, but unfortunately is closed because of damage with the earthquakes. Now that home and those grounds, that's known as Riccarton House, and the grounds were purchased by local councils in 1947, and the legislation was changed at that time to include it with the bush. Now, of course, the Deans were Scottish and good Presbyterians, and in recent years Riccarton Bush has become the spiritual home of the Scottish community in the city. There's now a monument to the Deans family there and to the ordinary early Scots settlers, and they have regular Scottish events are held in the grounds, and I'm sure the Deans would enjoy those pipe band competitions, the Scottish dancing, the clan parades, the haggis eating, and particularly the whisky drinking. Now, the Deans were well established at Riccarton before the first 4 ships carrying settlers for the Canterbury Association arrived in our city, and they came with a vision for the Canterbury Association to transplant a perfect Anglican society transplanted to New Zealand. And local folklore tells us that the location of Hagley Park between the main settlements for the Anglican and those Presbyterian Deans was perhaps deliberate, kept them well on the other side of the city, at arm's length from the new settlement. Now, I'm not sure whether that's true, but the fact that the city fathers later allocated land for the Catholic community at the other end of town near the gasworks would tend to let us believe that it might be true. This bill today is a further amendment of the original Act and is necessary to update and modernise the governance structures, to better define the role of the board, and to vest the land at 30 Kahui Road to the board. Now, Dean's Bush at Riccarton is now an especially lively place since the earthquakes, because although the old Dean's homestead, as I said, is still closed with damage, it's even become more of a community centre, and every weekend farmers' markets are held in the grounds. Now, apparently John Dean was an early conservationist, because on his deathbed he asked his wife Jane to be sure that Riccarton Bush remained forever. So this bill, which once again amends that original Act, brought to the House by the local Member of Parliament, Jerry Brownlee, thank you, Jerry, will keep Riccarton Bush safe for many years to come. So I commend this bill to the House.
I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Mr. Speaker, like